Here we go. All right, welcome everybody to our webinar today. We are here to talk about how to work with and how to handle some of our difficult families. And I titled the webinar today, How to Deal with That Parent. And you know, it was kind of a little bit of sarcasm in there. But you know, as we do different trainings and roundtable discussions, we all have one or two of those parents that that we all kind of cringe whenever we see them walk in the door. Or for example, at one of my schools, we have a particular parent that, you know, she calls about 17 times a day to check on her child and to check on us. And anytime her name pops up on the caller ID, we all run, and whoever the last person in the office is the one that has to answer it. So it's become a fun little game that we play, and I'm sure that we are not the only ones that have parents like this. But you know, there's a lot of people out there that have this personality. So I want to talk today about why certain people have this personality, how it affects us, why they take it out on us, and then of course how to deal with these people. They're actually pretty easy to deal with once you get them under control. It's just getting them under control is the hard part, you know. I have another particular parent at a school that used to be one of those parents, but we kind of got her in a place now where she's just a normal everyday parent. Every once in a while she'll slip back into her high maintenance role, but for the most part, like I said, we've kind of got her under control now. All right, and like I said, feel free to type in any question or comment that you have in your chat section so that we can all learn from this. But you know, the first question or the first conversation I want to have is, why do we have some parents that just make our life so incredibly difficult? You know, I call this quite often the guilty parent syndrome. And anytime you've got a guilty parent syndrome, that's usually when you've got this type of parent that just really nitpicks every single little thing that we do. And of course, the psychology behind that is that if the child was at home with them, then the child wouldn't get hurt. The child wouldn't get sick. You know, the child wouldn't get a scratch on their face. These are all, we all know that these are all everyday occurrences. It happens in any group care situation. But that guilty parent syndrome comes out that, you know, another individual is raising my child besides myself. And so they kind of take it out on us. So I'm going to mention this probably 3 or 4 different times in today's webinar. And it's one of the most important things to remember when working with difficult parents. Don't take it personal. I know it feels like a personal attack, you know, whenever they come after you, especially when they question your authority, when they question your judgment, when they question your decision making. You feel like it's a personal attack. It's not. It's not a personal attack. Always keep in mind that they are the ones with the issue, not you. All right? So being able to explain yourself, being able to be confident and to show that confidence is going to be really important when working with these people. If you're not confident in how you're speaking to them, you know, they are going to walk all over you. I'm trying to think of a more professional way of stating this right here, but I'm just gonna say it what's in my mind. Sometimes you've got to put them in their place, and it's very common with the parent that I was just referring to a minute ago that we were having issues with, and now we're not, because we kind of had to sit her down and put her in her place. Look, this is the way we run our program. This is the education that we provide. It's really simple. You either like us or you don't. If you don't like us, hit the road. You know, one of the biggest pieces of advice is that my attorney has ever given me, and I know I've mentioned this to several of y'all when we've had conversations, you know, not all money is good money. And if you do have a particular family or a particular parent that you're having to spend so much time on, and you just cannot make them happy, you know, it may not be the best place for them. And I know we're all struggling for enrollment. We're all struggling for revenue. We got to protect every single penny. But I want y'all to sometimes think about how much time you're wasting on this one particular family and how much time you're not spending with other families that are on your team. So, you know, always kind of keep that in mind right there. But you do just have these guilty parents out there that are trying to fluff up our feathers. You know, they're trying to make themselves known. And you do also kind of have to ask yourself, what do they want? All right. You know, a lot of times if you really want to dissect the difficult parent is usually not only going through the guilty parent syndrome, but they also have low self-esteem themselves. Okay. And having that low self-esteem or not feeling good about their parenting skills is going to make things like this happen as well. You know, I want y'all to keep in mind, not only for the difficult parent, but for all of our families that we work with, we only see a snapshot of that parent and their interactions with their child and their ability to raise their child. We see the snapshot when they're dropping off, we see the snapshot when they're picking up, and occasionally at a parent event, all right? Some of our families, just like employees, just like, you know, everybody, all of us, we put on a dog and pony show. And a lot of times when families do come in to pick up and to drop off, they put on a dog and pony show. So a lot of times you may think that you know your families, you know what's going on in their personal life, you know what type of person they are. You only know the dog and pony show that they're putting on when they're dropping off and picking up. We see this quite often with the difficult parent, with the parent that's constantly questioning you, constantly belittling you. They're hiding something else underneath all of that. And a lot of times this is their opportunity to just make them feel better, okay? So again, that's where I say it once again, don't take the attacks personally. And I want you to train your teachers working in the classroom not to take this personally. Let me talk about classroom really quick. Make sure that your teachers do know that when you are working with this particular type of parent, the aggressive conversations, the belittling conversations should never take place in the classroom in front of the other children. So y'all need to make sure that you've got a good system in place, that if you have one of these parents that want to cause a scene in the classroom in front of children, that is immediately eliminated. This is something that should be addressed in your parent code of conduct, in your parent policies, that any communication or any questions or concerns need to be addressed with the front office and away from the classroom. You know, this is another very big common characteristic about difficult parents or difficult customers. They want an audience, and you're always going to notice that they're going to raise their voice, they're going to bring up concerns, they're going to bring up complaints when other people are around. And, you know, pay close attention to this. You'll even notice that if they are the only ones in the lobby, they won't say a word. They will wait for a group of other people to show up. How many of y'all agree with me on that one? You know, you can type a comment in there, but it's very true. They want that audience. The other thing is people that have this personality, that they like to cause a scene, they like to cause drama, they're very quick to understand exactly what pushes your buttons. Okay, and they love to push your buttons. It's not just you, it's everyone else out there. They love to do this. You know, one of the best stories that I have about one of these parents, and we quote unquote, you know, we had a family one time at our school that both mom and dad every single day had something to say, some complaints, some type of griping that they had to do. They were very, very aggressive with the front office staff. They were very aggressive with the teaching staff. All of the common personality traits came out. You know, nothing was ever their fault. Their children were perfect. If there was an issue in the classroom, it was the teacher's fault, not the kids. You know, all of those typical characteristics. Well, one Monday morning, one of our teachers came in, and she was telling us that over the weekend, her and her family had gone to a restaurant to have dinner, and they heard all this commotion. They looked over, and it was this family, and it was mom and dad and these two kids, and they were just ripping into the waiter, telling him how incompetent he was the worst waiter ever, how in the world does he still have his job. The manager came over, you know, and long story short, they ended up kicking the family out of the restaurant and caused this gigantic scene. And, you know, and I told the teacher that was telling us this, you know, there was a whole group of us listening to the story. And I said, you know, I'm so glad that you shared that story with us because, number one, it was very entertaining and we're all applauding and everything. I said, but I'm really glad you shared that story with us because that right there tells you it's not just us. You know, they treat everybody this way. You know, it's that personality that certain people feel like victims and everyone owes them something and everyone is supposed to bow to them. You know, it's that type of personality. So it was really good hearing this restaurant story because, you know, we're normal. We're great providers. We're, you know, we provide great service. We great education, get great care for the children. This family treats everybody horribly. You know, and just like when I did my webinar and my class on working with social media, you know, if you go on to any of the websites out there that you can do reviews and you can write your opinion about a service that you received, people that write negative complaints or negative surveys, click on their name and read all of the different surveys they write. I guarantee you they write a negative comment every single place they go. They're people that they just can't be made happy. That makes us kind of feel better again because you're doing the right thing, you know, and again, don't take it personal right there. You know, the secret to success with working with these families is confidence. And you've got to be confident in yourself because the first sign of weakness that they see, they will take advantage of it. So be confident. Do we make mistakes? Absolutely we make mistakes, but we fix our mistakes. I'm actually teaching a class next week on parent retention and how to get your parents to be satisfied and how to retain your enrollment. You know, and that's one thing that we will talk about in my class next week is that mistakes are opportunities. You know, mistakes are a gift. And when parents come to you and complain, that's a gift because that gives you the incredible opportunity to make it right. And nothing builds confidence and nothing builds trust better than making a mistake and then making it right. And how you handle that and the process that you go through to make it right is the best. And that's why, you know, I say in a lot of the different classes I teach, in order to be successful, you have to fail first because there's so many things that you learn and you build off of that failure. All right. All right, great. Let me once again kind of go over some common characteristics of that parent. Again, it's never their fault. It's never their children's fault. You know, they just want to make themselves feel better. You've got a lot of that entitlement type stuff. Now, when you do have one of these parents that come in and they want to talk to you, I cannot stress enough, you know, the importance of documentation. And I believe I have it on my website. If I don't have it on my website, I will make sure it's there this afternoon. But I use what I call a parent concern form. And it's a really simple form that anytime a parent comes to you with a concern or a complaint, you pull out this form, you write down today's date, the parent's name, what is the concern, documenting it is going to show the parent that you're taking it serious. First and foremost, always listen to what the parent has to say. Don't interrupt them. Keep eye contact, and then take your notes. All right. Let them get it all out. After they get it all out, let there be a good 3 to 5 second moment of silence. And then I always say, I'm going to read my notes back to you. Okay, and then read whatever you wrote down. Did I document your concern correctly? I'm not saying I agree. I'm not accepting blame. I'm just reading my notes back to them. One of the biggest mistakes that you can make with that parent is to talk over them. All right, to interrupt them whenever they're trying to talk. All right, because again, that just makes them hotter and hotter and hotter. Now, you're going to notice a lot of times when you are communicating with this type of parent or this type of customer, even when they think they're done talking, as soon as you try to talk, they will butt in. You know, it's kind of like the rules don't work both ways with this type of parent. It's not okay for you to talk over them, but it's okay for them to talk over you. And so it might be, if you get into this situation, that you set some ground rules. All right. We're both going to take turns talking, and we both agree not to interrupt each other. When you are dealing with an aggressive type of situation or a heated type of situation, it is always a good idea to set some ground rules. All right. You're not going to have a productive conversation unless you set those ground rules. Not talking over each other is probably the most important ground rule to set. But they have got to agree to the rules too. All right. You know, another big part of working with these parents is to build a rapport and to build trust and respect through empathy. Try to put yourself in their shoes. All right. And I know a lot of times when we're working with these parents, their concerns are crazy. Or, you know, whatever it is that they're blowing up about today is super, super crazy. But you got to build that empathy. And this takes talent, and this takes practice, is to put yourself in their shoes and to gain that empathy. But let them know, you know, I understand where you're coming from. It must be very frustrating for you to feel this way. And acknowledge those feelings for them. You know, that's going to build, like I said, the trust and the respect right there. No matter how angry they get, no matter how aggressive they get, don't ever raise your voice with them. The best thing you can do with these type of parents is to lower your voice and to talk in a nice, soft level. Remember, you're the manager, you're the leader, you're the one that's setting the example. And even though, you know, we normally set examples for our teachers and for our children, a lot of times, you know, our parents are looking to us to see how we respond to situations, and we've got a role model, active calming, we've got a role model how to keep ourselves under control. Plus, lowering your voice and keeping an appropriate tone of voice is going to keep them in control as well. But lowering your voice and keeping an appropriate tone of voice, again, is going to build that trust and respect. That's like the key thing right there working with these families, is that you've got to get their trust and respect. Once you get their trust and their respect, they're easy. All right, you've got them. But that's the main thing right there. I want y'all to remember with active calming, you know, breathe, count to 10. There's absolutely nothing that says you have to talk about something right now. And if you do feel that you're moving into a high range of emotions, and if you do feel that your brain is downshifting into the fight or flight response mode, stop the conversation and reschedule it for another time. Okay? Hey, Mom, you know what? I can tell that you're very emotional about this conversation, about this situation. Why don't we schedule tomorrow at 9 a.m. to continue this conversation? I think it would be best for both of us to kind of calm down, to get our emotions under control so that we can have a productive conversation. All right. And so, that's kind of the best way of dealing with it. Now, they're not going to be happy with that comment at first. They're going to appreciate it later on. Yes, we got a great comment right here. A lot of these parents have had bad experiences at another center. So we are having to build our trust with them as well as fix whatever trust was lost elsewhere. High five to Kim. That is so incredibly true. And I mention this often in a lot of my trainings. We are all in this together. No matter what part of the state you're in, whether you're across the street from me or you're across the state from me, we are all in this together. And when one center uses poor judgment and makes a mistake, we all have to fix that. Because you're right, Kim, that parent carries that situation with them, and the assumption is made that we all make these mistakes. That we all have this common practice, and it's not that way. It was one individual that had poor judgment and said or did something, but they carried it around. And so, and if you put yourself in the parent's shoes, again, having that empathy right there, we're talking about their child. We're talking about the most precious thing in their lives. It is our human nature to carry those emotions around with us. And so we constantly have to work on building trust and respect. That's another one of the items that we will be talking about next week in the conference that I'm doing next week on parent satisfaction, is that trust and respect is something that you constantly build. All right. You constantly have to work on it. One of the reasons why we lose parents is because we let parents go silent. We let parents go inactive. We do a really good job of selling our program at the beginning. We do a really good job of building relationships at the beginning. But then after the new wears off, both the parent and the school goes inactive, and the relationship starts to go downhill. So you've got to constantly work at maintaining those relationships and constantly work at the trust and respect. I mentioned earlier that when we're working with these type of families, that they love to have an audience. They love for people to watch them. Even if you are able to take them into a private area so that you can have a confidential conversation, and that is the best thing to do, but it's not always applicable. Sometimes we can't make that happen. Any conversation that you have with a family, always assume that other customers are watching, or always assume that other families are watching. And so you're not only responding to this one particular parent, but you're responding to everybody, especially since we do have a lot of families that are kind of nosy and they listen. All right. But if you are in one of these situations where you're kind of sort of putting the parent in their place, and you do kind of have an audience out there, and if you can do it in the professional way, you're kind of showing everyone that you believe in yourself, you're confident in yourself, and you're handling this issue with integrity. And when other people do witness that, they're going to gain that trust and respect too. All right. Okay, so we got a comment. Oh, this is a good one too. We have a problem of school-age children telling parents part of a situation without the child accepting responsibility for their actions. Then the parent reacts in a negative manner when they only hear part of what occurred and blame the center and the teacher. This is, and I use this example all the time. Anytime a parent comes to me with a complaint or a concern, I always try to throw some type of personal story into it at the beginning. And kind of with this situation right here, my own two kids, especially whenever they were in high school, they would love to come home and and tell me about something that happened at school. And it's not that they were lying, because they weren't lying. They were telling me the truth, but they didn't tell me the whole story. And, knowing the entire story makes a big difference in the outcome and how you respond to it. So, because, a lot of times parents will say, are you calling my kid a liar? No, 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 no. I'm not saying that your child is lying. I'm saying there's more to the story. All right. So, exactly. And they always leave the valid and most important pieces out of it. Remember, there's always three sides to every story. This side, and the truth somewhere in the middle. So, kind of starting off the conversation with a little personal story, the same thing happened to my child one time. They told me this and that, but they forgot to tell me the rest of the story. I'm sure that's happened to you before. And then kind of go on and handling the situation, that way. But of course, the child is only going to tell the side of the story that makes them look good, or they're only going to tell the side of the story that makes them the victim. Okay. And, most of us out there are parents ourselves, and we always immediately want to take our child's side. Nothing is their fault, but we also all have to realize that our children are not perfect, and children make mistakes, and that's very common for children to make the mistakes. So, kind of leading it off in that direction is really, really good. All right. I also want y'all to keep in mind when you're dealing with one of these parents that you are working with a human. They are flesh and blood, just like me, just like you. I know that you may feel from time to time that they don't have blood inside their body. They have fire inside their body. And the fire comes out of their eyeballs and out their ears and everything. But they are human. And, this is something that everyone needs to keep in mind working in the early childhood industry, is that we always get the end of the day. We get the end of the day parent, where they have been at work all day long. They have had a supervisor that's been on them about a project. They've, got stress in their life. How am I going to pay my bills? Blah, blah, blah. They've got their entire day that they're dealing with. And at the end of the day, they just want to go to the early childhood program, pick up their child, and go home and relax. So we are the icing on the cake. We are the end of the day. And so a lot of times when you have one of these parents that it feels like they're attacking you, they're really not attacking you. They're attacking their day. And, them coming to pick up their child and their child having a scratch, or their child having diaper rash, or, their child getting hit in the school age room, is just the icing on the cake. And so they're taking their entire day out on us. And that is so incredibly common in this industry. All right. That's why I think all of y'all would agree with me that the interactions with the parents, there's a huge difference between the interactions with the parents in the morning versus the interactions in the afternoon. All right. So always keep that in mind. All right. We got a comment here. When I'm greeting parents at the end of the day, I try to make sure to start off with asking about their day. That way you get a good read for their state of mind. Oh, I think that's fantastic, because if they've had a crazy day at work, okay, you don't want to bring crazy out anymore. You want to keep crazy confined, all right? So let's not have a difficult conversation. Let's just keep crazy where they're at right now. One of the things that I stress in my programs is a strong philosophy on customer service, especially during pickup and drop-off time. That, I don't want my directors, I don't want my assistant directors to perform any type of busy work during drop-off and pickup time. I don't want them sitting behind a computer during drop-off and pickup time. I want them out in the lobby, in front of the front desk, greeting parents, having conversation with parents, talking about the children's day, and being available. it's amazing what a difference that makes, especially when you're working with these type of parents, that just being available to them makes a gigantic difference in their attitudes. You know, a lot of times they're going to bring up a complaint or a concern just to get your attention. It's kind of like, hey, I'm here, you know. You greet them out there at the door with a hello, how was your day, you know, kind of like what Kim had mentioned. It solves a lot of the problems right then and there. You know, the bottom line, and you know, I just did a webinar on dealing with aggression a couple of weeks ago. You know, the bottom line is that we just want to feel safe. Children need to feel safe. Adults need to feel safe. And when you feel that you're in a hostile environment, you do go to that fight or flight response. So you being out there and available for your families, you being open for your families is going to make them feel safe. And right off the bat, you've put them in a comfortable state of mind. And so we want to make sure that we do that, that they are in a comfortable state of mind. So important right there. I think this is also a huge, you know, a huge thing that you are aware of what's going on in the classroom throughout the day, so that when the parent does come in, you're able to have conversations about things that are going on, positive things that are going on. Y'all remember the sandwich method. You say something positive, you address a concern, you end with something positive. You know, it's old school, but it still works very, very, very well. None of us like to be blindsided. As a parent, I don't like to be blindsided. As a manager, I don't like to be blindsided. Same thing with our parents. If you do know that there was an issue throughout the day, give them a courtesy call, let them know so it doesn't hit them right as they walk in the door. Now, I do like to have as much information as possible when giving that courtesy call. You don't ever want to leave a parent, especially one of these parents, hanging with information, because when they're left hanging, then they start making assumptions. When they start making assumptions, you know, they also start hearing outside voices, people at work, people in the family that start giving them unsolicited advice on how they should handle a situation. And those outside voices are just a thorn in our side right there. So you know, we want to stay away from that. So give them as much information as possible, so that they don't sit there and dwell on it. All right, that's good stuff. If you do need to follow up with a parent, make sure that you make note of when you're going to do that follow-up, and then make sure you do it. Always make sure that you summarize what your next steps are. That's what I love about the parent communication form that I use. It's because I will be able to document how I'm going to handle the situation, or what steps I'm going to follow in working with this situation. You know, and that shows the parent, again, that you're taking it serious. But make sure that you always give them an action plan. We already mentioned, you know, don't ever get angry or upset. You have got to be the professional, and you have to be able to keep your emotions to yourself. Okay. Now, once the parent leaves, you can go in the office and you can let it all out. All right. But while you're right there with them, this goes back to one of my golden rules, and a lot of y'all know my golden rules. But you know, a parent should never see you stressed or upset. They're going to be looking to see how you handle this situation. And, you know, this takes practice. Absolutely, it takes practice. So if you're a new director out there, if you're a veteran director out there, find someone to do some role playing with you on working with these parents, these very difficult parents, to kind of coach you in how you're going to handle the situation. You know, but you don't want those emotions to come through. I'm going to talk out of both sides of my mouth for just a second. First off, don't ever give in to the parent. All right. This, again, is kind of going back to another one of my golden rules. The parents don't run your school, you do. You have policies and procedures in place for a reason. Those policies and procedures are followed by everybody. Anyone that disagrees with a policy or procedure should not be in your center. So if a parent doesn't like one of your policies, they get to go somewhere else. It's really, really simple. All right. But like I said, a parent doesn't run your school, you do. Okay. So don't let them try to run your school. And they always like to give us advice on how to run our early childhood programs. They have no clue everything that goes on. So this side of my mouth, I'm going to say, don't ever give in to a parent. But now over on this side of my mouth, sometimes you got to give in. All right. Now, I don't want you to make exceptions. I don't want you to lose your power because you don't want to give your power away. But, sometimes you just say, you know what, Mom, you're absolutely right. We're going to take care of this. All right. Or, Mom, I see where you're coming from. I'm going to go ahead and take care of this. And, that's a nice, polite way of giving in and just ending the conversation and then moving forward. All right. And I have said this many times with parents that what I've been working with, that, I've used the phrase of, this conversation is no longer productive. We need to either reschedule and have another meeting tomorrow at 10 a.m. Or we need to just go our separate ways. But at this point, this conversation is no longer productive. Sometimes you do got to know when to end the conversation. And, ending a conversation doesn't always need to be ended with a solution. All right. And especially, like I said earlier, when you do have high range of emotions that are being thrown around, it is definitely time to end that conversation. All right. Just a couple of other tips that I wanted to share with you for working with difficult customers, difficult families. Remember that you're good at what you do, no matter what anyone tells you. You're a good director. You're a good teacher. You're a good assistant director. You know that. Everyone around you knows that. This one angry parent that who knows what's going on in their life right now does not get to define your integrity, and they don't get to define what type of job you do. All right. So, always tell yourself that you're good at what you're doing. Keep a complaint journal, or a complaint or a concern journal, or a complaint or concern log. Again, this is the great thing about the parent communication forms that I use, but you can kind of translate it or transfer it over to some type of journal, and you'll start noticing trends that certain parents complain at certain times of the week, certain times of the month, certain times of the day. And kind of noticing some of these trends will really help you out in your management of the school. Because sometimes you will kind of see with the trends that it is a classroom issue. It might be a management issue for you. It could be an issue with the parent. But I have found over my years a huge amount of success with keeping journals of complaints or concerns, and really looking at dates and times and days of the week. It's amazing what you'll learn from that right there. It's going to make your job super, super easy whenever you're doing that. Make sure that you train your staff that if they're dealing with one of these parents to, they should not have to deal with these parents by themselves. That's why you get paid the big bucks, is to deal with these families. Make sure that you've got a good system in place, that you're able to step in and take over that conversation if it becomes to, if it starts getting aggressive. Our teachers should be interacting and educating the children. They shouldn't have to deal with these type of personalities. I've talked a couple of times in this webinar about stress management techniques and active calming. This is something, again, that you're going to need to practice. It's going to be different for every person. But, when we do conscious discipline and in the classrooms, we teach our children active calming. the same thing needs to be done for us as adults, as professionals, that we also need to practice active calming and keeping ourselves under control. You know, breathing deeply, making sure that you've got water available for you to drink, not to throw on the parent, for you to drink. All right. And I want you to once again recognize that we all have bad moments. Parents have bad moments. Now, again, I've mentioned in some of my previous trainings, it's very common for people to say that they've had a bad day. You know, I could probably ask on this webinar, has anyone had a bad day recently? Well, I want us to train ourselves that we don't have bad days. We have bad moments. And working with these parents right here, this is just a moment of your day. It's not going to define your entire day. If you have to create a moments chart that you keep, you know, on your desk, that anytime you have a positive moment, you jot that down. Anytime you have a negative moment, you jot that down. That way you can see that you're not having a bad day, you're just having bad moments. And your positive moments will always outweigh your negative moments. And so my point right here being, again, working with that parent, working with these difficult parents, these are just small moments in your day. Don't let that parent define your entire day. Okay? It's just that one moment that you're working with them. All right? I am a self-analyzer, and I do this quite often, probably more than I should. But I do kind of analyze every single moment in every situation, and I always ask myself, what can I do different the next time? You know, even when I have conversations with parents, I have conversations with teachers, especially if it does become aggressive or hostile. How could I handle the situation different next time? And you know, and I think that if you are keeping a concern or complaint journal, this is something you want to jot down in your journal. I usually will use a different color pen, maybe a red pen, that I'll jot down, how could I handle it differently next time? Or what did I learn from this particular conversation or from this particular incident, and how can I handle it differently next time? Because we all have the opportunity to learn and to grow. You know, remember that body language says, you know, is the most of communication. The handout that I gave y'all said 55% of communication is body language, 38% of tone of voice. That is so true right there. It's only 7% of communication are the words that come out of your mouth. It's body language and tone of voice. You've got to make sure that you're being the professional right here. All right. Just some other things that I gave you, just kind of for fun, mainly. Becoming aware of the world that we live and work in these days. Over 70% of the current workforce is quote unquote crazy. You get to define what crazy means, but I think we all kind of know that right there. You know, over 70% of the current workforce is addicted to some type of drama. We know that working with our own staff from time to time, but this also includes our parents, that if you are dealing with one of these customers, one of these parents, that it's just their nature, it's their personality to start drama. They feed off of that drama. Your snack this afternoon, they just need to feed off of you. You know, 75% of the current workforce suffers from substance abuse or mental disorders. It's a very high percentage right there. Over 60% of the current workforce has an issue with alcohol. Over 20% has issues with depression. I kind of thought that number would be higher, but this is off of the current statistics. And then, of course, about 15% suffer from anxiety, all right? And over 90% of these people that I just mentioned never get help. which means we have to continue to deal with them and we have to continue to work with them. Last thing I want to mention on the webinar right here, and I kind of saved this for the ending because it's pretty, how much from depression? 20% from depression was that number. So 60% from alcohol, 20 from depression, 15 from anxiety, and then over 90% never get help. All right. All right, so kind of getting serious for a minute. I want y'all to keep in mind that when we're working with these difficult parents, and I know that I mentioned that they love to have an audience. One of their most popular audience members that they enjoy being part of these charades is their own child. They love for their child to witness the way that they treat us from time to time. And that makes me very sad because we're not role modeling good communication, social, and emotional skills to the child. So when you are dealing with these type of situations, if you can do it in a way that the child is removed or is not a witness, that's always the best thing. And even if the child is present, politely and professionally ask the parent if we can please take the child back to the classroom while we have this conversation. Or can we please schedule to have this conversation when the child is not present? And I've had parents, make comments to me that, oh, I want my child to hear this. Well, that's part of the problem, And, again, when you're earning that trust and respect, and you're seen as the professional in the field, they're going to kind of take that to heart whenever you do state that the child should not be present during this conversation. But, I also want y'all to keep in mind that if you do have a difficult parent that has this strong of a personality, the child is not only witnessing this behavior at your facility, but they're also witnessing this behavior anywhere that the parent is taking them. So I want you to kind of go back to your teachers and work with your teachers about positive interactions and positive conversations and appropriate conversations. Don't throw the parent under the bus. That's going to cause all kinds of drama. But the children of these parents need a lot of positive influences in their life so that we can add more positivity to their memory and to their experiences right there. Now if the parent refuses to remove the child from the situation, or if they want the child to hear what has to be said, then you need to be at your best with professionalism, with tone of voice, with how you're going to respond, and you role model to that child how you've got it together and how you're going to handle the situation. Even if you have made the biggest mistake in the world, we can still handle it in the appropriate way. And the child is eventually going to pick up on the fact that mom or dad are not being nice or not being appropriate. But wow, look at my teacher. Wow, look at my director. They are so calm, they're not being bothered by this. And so, if you do have a situation where the child is present and the parent absolutely refuses to remove them, it's kind of like, as much as I hate to say it, you've got an incredible opportunity to make a difference right there. An incredible opportunity. I still don't like them being part of it, especially in our world when we're early education. The kids are not old enough to understand this, but if they are going to witness it, then we're going to handle the situation in the best possible way so that they can have a good experience or a good memory of that. All right, fantastic. Oh, we covered a lot of information in our quick hour. Sometimes these webinars go so extremely fast. We had some great comments in our chat section today. Any other last questions or comments that anyone wants to make? We've got about 8 minutes to wrap up here, and it cuts us off after that. So otherwise, no, I am working on my summer and fall Tuesdays with Tim schedule. Everything's going to be at 1 o'clock from now on. But if y'all have any topics that you would like to see, shoot me an email, tim@timthetrainer.com, and I'll be happy to review that and add some topics and everything to our webinars. So 30%. Jessica asked, oh, 70%. Oh, yes, thank you, Jessica. You answer. Very good. And like I said, any questions that y'all have, if you want a one-on-one, you're always free to call me or email me, and I'll always look forward to talking to y'all. And like I said, we're all in this together. Let's stick together and do what's best for the kids. All right, thank you everybody so much, and enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. Bye-bye.